Good evening and welcome to the second round of the Go Race Promotions E-Series. My name is Matthew Nipris from Go Race Promotions. We're bringing you the action from practice night ahead of round number 2 for the E-Series here at Circuit of the Americas, as we're following two of the Corvettes, Chris Nipris and Brent Dixon. Chris Nipris rocking an absolutely awesome looking livery, a livery dedicated to the Anzacs, as our next round is taking place. I think it's just after Anzac Day, so a nice little salute there from Chris Nipris to our armed forces. And of course, if any of our armed forces are watching the stream right now, we'd like to welcome you, and we hope you enjoy the stream, as we're seeing people already joining the server really quickly. Just seen Ben Piper, I believe it's Shawn Gerard, and then Matteo DeVito, all joining the server. So a lot of drivers very keen to get onto the server nice and early, cut some laps, get some times on the board, and get their setup all developed, as we're watching the two Corvettes of Chris Nipris and Brent Dixon. Of course, big news for the Dixon Kart Sport team. The Dixon Kart Sport team will be welcoming Brent's brother Kurt Dixon to the team, running a Porsche 911. So we welcome Kurt Dixon in advance to the E-Series, as we continue to focus on Chris Nipris as they start to round the final few corners. But we'll focus on Brent Dixon now, as they come around the final corner to start their first flying laps of practice. So away we go, Brent Dixon starting his first flying lap with Chris Nipris just behind. So remember to keep an eye on the very left-hand side, as our tower will update you on where each driver is sitting. Circuit of the Americas. We did have a fun race a little bit earlier. I believe it was around February, as I think Chris Nipris he might have had a spin. But either way, Brent Dixon actually won the fun race, if memory serves. He as he uses a little bit too much exit space, coming out of the uphill right and left-hander and into this hairpin before this almighty long straight, where during the fun race we did see the Nissan GTR was absolutely on form, hitting about 20 k's per hour faster down the straight. So, we've actually decided that any Nissans that do join the series later in the year will probably get restricted on the throttle as part of our balance of performance. Speaking of balance of performance, we did have a bit of a review of the Corvette, and we decided to knock 5 kilos off of the balance of performance penalty that the Corvettes have. So we'll wait and see, get some feedback from the Corvette drivers, and obviously observe how they go, as Brent runs a little bit wide again. Of course, drivers will be looking to just set some race pace while the track starts to bed in. It's looking a little bit green at the moment, but we also have, as unfortunately we've lost Shawn Gerard. So hopefully he joins us a little bit later. So Brent Dixon goes top of the times with a 2-minute 10.2. As we now see Shawn Gerard rejoin the server, so maybe not happy with some of his steering wheel settings. It's quite common. Chris Nipris obviously did have a spin because he's 9 seconds off of Brent Dixon's time. We continue to follow Brent Dixon around this final sector. He's about 3/10 up on his own time, which is, well, it's pretty well to be expected, I think, as drivers start to get used to the track and the conditions. Track's looking a little bit green at the moment, so there won't be a lot of grip out there for these drivers. Brent Dixon having a bit of an odd mid-corner break there. That's not really a braking point, I don't think, but as he's very wide onto the AstroTurf. Very good display of driving, keeping it under control, but that's going to cost him a little bit as he exits the final corner, powers down the main straight. What does he do? He does a 2:09.8, so Brent Dixon already improving within the first 6 minutes of this practice session. So let's have a look at some of the other drivers on track as we focus on Ben Piper, the first of the Mercedes AMGs on track. As we also see Michael DeVito go up to second, 4/10 off of Brent Dixon's time. As we just focus on Ben Piper, apparently he's just on his outlap, according to the overlay there. As Piper rounds that tricky double right-hander, brings it into this tight left-hander. This track is very difficult for drivers to get the hang of, as it does have a lot of very fast entries, but then it tightens suddenly. So drivers have to have a car that's stable under brakes, but then allows the car to rotate quickly to get around these tight corners. As Ben Piper brings up to the final corner. We'll see if he was on his outlap. As he was on his outlap, he is now charging down the front straight. We also see Chris Farlow has joined the server. So Farlow joined the server just in time for our last fun race. And he was actually quite competitive, finishing second at the Catalunya circuit. It's Ben Piper. Really aggressive driving style. We saw this at the Nürburgring during practice, that Piper does not mind using the sausage curbs. We'd also like to apologise for the poor quality of our stream at the moment. Unfortunately, YouTube has decided to throttle our streaming capabilities just because of the COVID-19 and the unexpected traffic. As while I was distracted there, Michael DeVito has gone straight to the top of the timesheets with a 2:09.4. As let's swap to Mr. DeVito right now in what can only be described as the meme machine. We certainly had a bit of a laugh when he submitted this livery to us. Maybe that's a self-portrait on the side of the car there. Who knows? Not really sure. So DeVito still at the top of the timesheets, 0.4 faster than Brent Dixon, as he has got another driver just in front of him. Sounds like a AMG or... It's DeVito really using every inch of the track there. And it's nice to have the first Ferrari in the series, as we see Shawn Gerard finally posted time at 2 minutes 34, 25 seconds off the pace, the newcomer. Getting to grips with the Assetto Corsa sim. As the number 02 comes up to the final corner. Gets it rotated. Nice and smooth. All the way out onto the AstroTurf, and that is a 2:09.1, so Michael DeVito definitely on the pace and setting some pretty quick times already on such a green circuit. As the Ferrari screams on the downshifts. Looking very balanced already, although it does seem to miss the apex of the left-hander. And then that's going to cost him probably a little bit. Oh no, he's 2/10 up, so DeVito, even after that small mistake, still very quick. The Ferrari, a very stable car. So of course we would expect it to be very quick through that opening chicane. Now DeVito comes down to this hairpin before the very long straight. Straight that's at least a kilometre or two long, as Ben Piper goes to the to second position. 0.04 off of DeVito's time, so Piper, man on the move there, as we can see that is, looks like Chris Nipris just in front of Michael here. So we'll check in with Chris a little bit later. DeVito right over that curb. Looking very relaxed in the car. We're not seeing too much attitude from the car. So he brings it into the final corner. Nice smooth exit. And this is going to be a 2:09.1. He lost a little bit of time in that final sector, it seems. Stick with Michael DeVito for a little bit longer. The mean machine flying down this back straight. And don't forget if you're in the chat, feel free to ask us any questions you like. once again, we would like to apologise for the poor quality of our stream. It's unfortunately out of our control at this point. As Michael DeVito pulls into the pits. Happy with that time, a 2:09.1. So the debutant really showing his potential nice and early. So we're going to switch focus to Chris Farlow, who's currently third on the leaderboard. 0.3, so he goes straight to the top. So 2:08.8 for Chris Farlow. So his second or third flying up. Unfortunately, I lost track of time and who was where. But the number 20 AMG is on top of the leaderboard at the moment. As Farlow, like Piper, really likes to use those sausage curbs. As the muscles the AMG around. I've recently had a bit of a go on one of my own streams at the AMG, and I found that the car was very, very slow to turn. So Farlow's doing a very good job getting this AMG muscled around some of these tighter corners. Already Farlow showing that he is a driver that needs to be taken seriously. He really did put in a great effort at our last fun race after getting caught up in some first corner shenanigans, which involved Chris Nipris as well. Farlow managed to fight back from all that to finish second in that fun race. And here he is now. Muscling that wonderfully presented Mercedes, actually. Uses all the space there. Coming up to the final corner. Gets the big Merc rotated. And he now sets a 2:08.6, so that's another improvement from Chris Farlow. It's such an early stage of the practice session as well. So the track evolution is still pretty low at the moment. But we expect that to improve as more cars go around this circuit. AMGs of both Farlow and Piper very stable, very compliant with some of the sausage curbs around the circuit of the Americas. This flames belch from the side of the AMG. Looks like Farlow just outbraked himself a little bit, managed to get the number 20 pointed in. Now fires it down the long back straight that just goes forever and ever. Cars should be reaching about 260 k's per hour, if memory says correct. Farlow manages to pull it up in time for the tight left-hander. Fires it through the double apex right-handers. As we see, Brent Dixon managed to improve his time, doing an identical lap time to Ben Piper. Right now we're focusing on Chris Farlow. Unfortunately, our data not really working at the moment the way it should be, so we have no idea on split times. Comes out of the final corner again and goes to a 2:08.2. So Chris Farlow really setting some blistering pace nice and early, as we see Matteo DeVito coming out of the pits in the meme machine, the Ferrari 488. Great to see one of them in the series already. As E-Series just experienced a massive amount of growth after round number 1. We've gone from having 6 drivers registered to now just over 13, 14 actually. We recently welcomed a new driver literally about 5 minutes before we started the session. So, I'd like to welcome Matty Stratford, who hopefully will be joining us tonight. As we see Chris Nipris prove his time, he goes to a 2:10. As we now see car the number 64 McLaren, Glen Riddle, has now joined the session. Glen Riddle, another one of the brand new drivers into the E-Series, and I'd like to wish him all the best of luck. He takes on the world of sim racing, of course. Riddle, no stranger to real-life racing. Running around in the Retro Karting Association. Absolutely magnificent machines there too. And we were very privileged actually last year to attend a round of the Retro Karting Association to cover one of their rounds. It was great to see some of the karting equipment that you might have expected Sebastian Vettel to cut their teeth in before they moved on to Formula 1. Right now we're focusing on Chris Farlow, another 2082, so again, incredible consistency as well for Farlow this early in the session. As we see one of the Dixon Kart Sport cars heading out of the pits. Well, of course, that would be Brent Dixon. As Farlow now calls that a day, as we now focus on a newcomer to the series. As we also lose Chris Farlow from the server, so maybe connection issues. As we're focusing on Shawn Gerard. Brand new to the world of sim racing. Running the Porsche 911. Maybe having some steering wheel issues. Or perhaps some connection issues, but either way, Shawn is on track at the moment, just cutting some laps. Also tested a Porsche 911 in my recent stream, and it was a very hard car to handle. As we can see, Shawn just struggling a little bit with the rear-engined 911. Of course, we welcome all drivers of all skill levels into the E-Series. Don't have to be a professional driver, such as the likes of Harper or Dixon. So Shawn just learning the ropes at the moment. Little bit sideways, and I think he may have selected neutral there. So, as while we're focusing on Shawn, we've managed to miss that Ben Piper has gone up to second. Oh, that's right, we lost Chris Farlow. So, bit of understeer there for Shawn. and then a bit of oversteer and into the wall. So not the way you want to end that lap, but we're sure that Shawn, he'll get the hang of it soon. Hopefully he's on the Discord getting some tips and tricks from the other drivers around him. Will he come into the pits? Looks like he is coming into the pits, so Shawn is calling that a day on that stint. As we focus on Chris Nipris as he's avoiding Glen Riddle behind him. Wonderfully presented Anzac tribute. I believe it's also Chris's first time driving around Circuit of the Americas. So he's still learning the circuit, as most of the drivers will be. Focus on Chris coming out of the final corner. Not sure if this is his outlap or if that was an actual... It was obviously an outlap. We'll stick with Chris for this lap. See if he can improve his time to get a little bit closer to Michael DeVito's time, or even Chris Farlow's time. We're not really sure what happened to Chris. We know that we've lost Chris for some reason. Sticking with Chris Nipris as he fires the big Corvette down the back straight. And then starts to pull it up. Ooh, big lock up there. As he comes to end the second sector. Still a little way off DeVito's time. 1.2 seconds off. We're not really sure what Chris is doing at the moment. He may just be focusing on a race setup, while DeVito is hammering out some quick laps early. As Kurt Woodward now joins the server. So that's 2 of 3 of the Dixon Kart Sport team in the server at the moment. Of course, as we mentioned earlier in the stream, the Dixon Kart Sport team has expanded out to 3 cars, with Kurt Dixon joining the team, running a Porsche 911. So the headlights ablaze on the number 61 Corvette. He fires it down the hill after that tight turn 1. We're expecting a little bit of chaos next week at the start of the race. Of course, the rolling start. So Chris Nipris now 0.3. If we believe that's DeVito's time. Do have to love the sound of a thumping V8. Don't forget, if you're sitting in the chat, to ask a few questions about the series and anything you might want to know before joining up with us. As we see, Ben Piper goes to the top of the timesheets. Just going to stick with Chris Nippers for a little while longer. He's losing a lot of time in the second sector. Crashes over that curb. Right now, we're going to swap over to the new fastest driver of the session. Of course, we lost Christopher Farlow for some reason. We're focusing on Ben Piper as we got a bit of desync happening right now. There's some very interesting shapes from the number 26 AMG as he made his way through the fast opening chicane. Bounces over the curb and a little too much into the fence. So that will end that lap for Ben Piper. He'll try and get the AMG rotated, and he does do. Unfortunately, a bit of a commentator's curse. We focus on Ben Piper and he immediately puts it into the fence. So sorry about that, Ben. I'm sure you'll do better next time. He'll absolutely love that we swapped over to focusing on him just as he made that mistake. Let's check in for number 13, Dixon Carsport Corvette of Brent Dixon, as just in front of him is his teammate Kurt Woodward in the number 9 Corvette. If ever you need to tell the difference, Kurt's got the orange and Brent has got the green. Of course, the Dixon Carsport team currently running 2nd and 4th in the championship after a very good round where they took 2nd and 3rd. So Woodward a little bit sideways on the entry to this. It's a very tricky sort of corner because you've got to brake, downshift, and then turn even harder. So it's very easy for the car to become unsettled on the entry. And then while you're trying to save it, you end up overcorrecting and it costs you even more time. And also that downhill left-hander, very tricky as well, as we see Glen Riddle close to 2:20 as Kurt Woodward very wide off onto the grass. In fact, that is definitely a violation of our track limits. Of course, these drivers will be worded up before the start of the race to watch their track limits. As you can see from the vision right now, there is plenty of runoff for these drivers. Woodward. Corvette's not really looking too stable at the moment, going through the change of direction. Even on the drive, as we see Glen Riddle trying to get out of the way, doing everything he can, even driving off the circuit. We unfortunately also do not expect to see Matthew Southwell tonight, the current championship leader. Unfortunately, work commitments have kept him away from the practice session as we watch Kurt Woodward instantly bin the number 9 Corvette. We can see the headlights flashing on the number 61 Corvette just behind him. As we're seeing a bit of teamwork going on here as Brent Dixon waits for Woodward. Just ahead, you can hear the crack of this impressive McLaren 650S. Very happy we managed to find a sound mod, and it's just made the McLaren sound a little bit nicer as Riddle gets caught out, as we were saying, by that little complex there. It's very easy because you got the weight of the car over the front and you got nothing over the rear, and you're trying to turn it. And the track does sort of dip down and dip away, and Really have to have a really stable car under brakes in order to get the best lap time. Riddle. So it's a 2:20 again. Of course, Riddle still learning the track and probably learning the sim as well, as this is his first foray into sim racing, we believe. Or maybe not. We know that a lot of karters out there are very fond of the iRacing. Glen Riddle is a very popular karter, thanks to his involvement with the Retro Karting Association. We hope that all at Glen's friends are hopefully going to be very impressed by Glen's driving at the moment. So he gets the opening chicanes a little bit messed up, and then this very tricky uphill chicane as he gets over the sausage curb and out onto the grass. So that lap is a write-off for Glen Riddle. As we see these three Corvettes line astern going down the straight. At the head of them, Chris Nipris has decided he does not want to be leading this mob. He's backed right out of it. He's going to get to the back. Maybe try and get a bit of a sneaky toe down this back straight. We focus on Brent Dixon using all the exit space at the end of the back straight. And maybe a little bit too much space, as this will compromise his. Well, that's a very odd line from Brent Dixon there. As we see Glen Riddle just loop it again as Dixon sideways through this right-hander that just goes on forever. It's almost a triple apex right-hander. Then into that downhill left hand, which is very difficult, very easy to get sucked in and out-brake yourself before coming up to this, as Kurt Woodward goes to the top of the timesheets with a 2:09.0. So Kurt Woodward on the pace again. As we focus on the number 9 Corvette. It's great to see that 7 of the 14 drivers have managed to make their way into the server. So we're not really sure what happened to Chris Farlow. The early pace setter set a 2:08. I think it was 2:08.2 very early in the piece. And we hope to see Chris rejoin the session soon, as Kurt Woodward decides to park the car for a little bit, goes through his teammate into his pit box. So the wonders of sim racing, where you can just goes through everyone. It's fantastic. I love it. As Speak of the Devil, Chris Farlow is now back into the server, so welcome, Chris. As we're going to swap over back to our meme machine, Matteo DeVito. We absolutely love this livery. I saw it and I just couldn't stop laughing. We're suspecting that is actually a self-portrait on the side of that Ferrari. So we're really hoping that Michael does actually have this. Well, you got this. There you go. That's the meme. So Matteo DeVito, actually good friends with Matthew Southwell. Two drivers actually share a car together in the Cheap Car Challenge held around Marulan. As we see Shawn Gerard in the background. Still just coming to grips with the Porsche 911. As I do have to admit, that is a very, very, very difficult car to drive. With all the weight in the rear, it's just a completely unstable car. So, however, it is a very capable car as well, if its history is anything to go by. And DeVito, this has been hit, that was his outlap. We'll wait to see what changes he made and what they've done. As he angles it into the first corner. That first corner, if we look up some quick facts about Circuit of the Americas. So I believe the incline between the start line and the first corner, I think the rise is something ridiculous, like hang on, I'll just look it up quickly. So quick look at old Dr. Google, and see that the elevation change is about 133 feet. So now I'm going to have to look up the conversion of feet into meters. Wish everyone would just use the same measurements, but no, you can't have everything. So it's equal to 40.5 meters. That's a massive elevation change. And a FIA approved circuit. So, and drivers are actually able to use that elevation to leave their braking as late as possible, even though they are hitting about 250 kilometers per hour down that main straight. They can still brake very, very late. I believe during the fun race I was actually braking at the 100 meter board in the big Nissan GTR. So Ruka asking a question to Spectre, which is technically me, but also not me at the moment. But anyway, benefits of a rear-engine vehicle. Well, that's a good question. It gets a lot more drive as all the weight is over the back wheels. But otherwise, it is very unstable. Tends to understeer a little bit, I believe. We can quickly ask Dr. Google that one as well. So according to our quick Google search, placing the engine near the rear axle usually results in more weight on the rear axle than the front. This causes uneven weight distribution, with the rear axle carrying about 65% of the weight. As a result, all four wheels get even traction under braking. So It's stable under braking and does get a lot more traction as the weight shifts backwards under acceleration. So drivers are able to get more drive, basically. If you have any more questions, make sure to shoot them through. We are watching the chat at the moment. So we're following Michael DeVito at the moment, currently 4th in the session, as Ben Piper has made his way to 2nd in this session so far. Of course, it's still early days in the session. We have not even gone an hour through this only practice session. It's great to see 8 drivers on the server at the moment. We're hoping that these drivers are comfortable in the cars come next Thursday night when we take to the server and to the track for real. For round number 2 of the Go Race Promotions E-Series. So we're just going to swap back to Shawn Gerard. Looking a lot smoother now. So Shawn is starting to get to grips with not just the car but the track as well. Maybe spoke a little bit too soon as he gets a little bit sideways. And he puts the car into the fence, unfortunately. So we're going to focus on another one of the newcomers, Glen Riddle. As Glen Riddle again falling victim to that long left-hander that tightens. Once again, cannot stress it enough. It is so hard to get a car that's balanced around there. This track is a bit of an anomaly, as Glen Riddle also falls victim to that downhill left-hander. It is such a quick change of direction there. You wouldn't think it, but it actually is. As you're exiting that triple right-hander. And of course, because he's cooked his rear tyres, Glen has to take it a little bit easier and drives into the fence. All good. Anyway, as I was saying, that little complex is very tricky. Because you end up trying to carry a lot of pace around that triple right-hander. Then you've got to try get it from the left-hand side of the track, because that's where the car's momentum naturally wants to take you. And you've got to change it to the right-hand side of the track as quickly as possible, brake, and then turn. Get the car rotated for that downhill left-hander, and it is very easy to make a mistake. As I just looked down for a second, looked up, and Glen has somehow managed to put it into the fence. Again, that as Glen also disconnects from the server, so we're going to find someone. Speaking of looking away and looking back again, Michael DeVito now on top of the timesheets. .006 ahead of Chris Farlow. We're following Farlow now. So fires it out of the final corner to start his first lap in this stint. It seems like a lot of drivers are working on qualifying setup early in this session, which is probably not how I would do things. Because the track is still very green, not a lot of rubber down. I usually want to wait until the end of the session when the track has some grip, and you can start throwing in some very fast times and dialing in the qualifying setup. Of course, this session is just about dialing the car in. There are no points. There's no real prizes for being top of the timesheets tonight. It really matters next Thursday night when we open the race night with the qualifying session, which is an hour long, where drivers have one last chance to double check their race setup and then also put in a quick time to determine their starting order in the Super Pole shootout, which is exactly how it sounds. Drivers getting one lap of the track all to themselves. We also see Brent Dixon improving up to 4th, displacing his teammate. Quite happy with how close some of these times are as Farlow gets very, very wide. So this lap not going to improve against Matteo DeVito. Chris Farlow, former drifter, now turning his attention to sim racing and in grip. Bounces that big AMG over that final sausage curb. It's not going to be an improvement. 2:08.8. Farlow really is showing that he does have a lot of consistency and he's able to run some quick, sorry, let me find my words. I've forgotten how to speak English. Very sorry. So, as I look away just to look at some questions, let me just get distracted for a little bit more as we answer a question from Ruka. So, personally, his question is: my style of dive bombing corners, is that bad for a Porsche? Well, it certainly didn't work for me in my live stream. That was for sure. But I think I did find that the car responded to very little driver input. So I found I didn't have to move the wheel as much, but once the car started to slide, there was no way I was going to catch the car. If that makes sense. So my driving style of driving it in as hard as humanly possible towards the apex probably doesn't work for the Porsche, no. As Farlow is currently up on DeVito's time. It's going to be interesting to see the many different styles taking that very gentle and tightening left-hander. As we saw, Farlow preferring a bit of a wide sweeping line. Some drivers may opt for a straight line, square the car off and then power out of that dip in the left-hander. It will really depend on the driver. Farlow not able to displace DeVito at the top of the timesheets. He goes around one more time using all the curb. So we welcome back Glen Riddle to the server. Obviously, maybe not very happy with his steering wheel setup. Of course, you can't adjust the settings while you're in a serve. You actually have to quit, fiddle around, and then rejoin. Also keeping an eye on that timing tree on the left-hand side, and we're just seeing Chris Nipris start to creep forward in the number 61 Corvette. He was 2 seconds off the pace, now 1.7. So we're getting to that stage now of the session where Chris does start to make a little bit of progress, Speaking of a little bit of progress, well, actually that's not a little bit of progress, that's a huge improvement. Chris Farlow 3/10 up. So we're looking at our first 2:07, providing Chris can keep it all together in the big AMG. Once again, I test drove the AMG on Sunday night during my personal stream. I found that the AMG was just so sluggish to turn in, but it was a very stable car otherwise. As Farlow way too wide there. So track limits definitely be a talking point during the driver's briefing, I suppose, as Farlow goes to the top. Loses about 2/10 in that final sector. But Farlow now onto a 2:08.029. Chris Nipris is driving the number 61 Corvette, as usual. Rules of our series that drivers may not change, well, that drivers can change their cars, but they sacrifice all their championship points. So, unless you are really, really, really unhappy with your car, it's not really worth changing cars in between rounds. So we keep an eye on Chris Farlow, as, yeah, keeping an eye on Chris Nipris as well. He's just pulled 4/10 off his previous best, and now sits just 1.3 seconds off of Farlow's time. So once again, we pointed out a little bit earlier that magnificent livery that Chris Nipris has put together. As this round is a bit of a impromptu Anzac round. So Chris Nipris has this special livery commemorating Anzac Day in Australia. Gets the big Corvette rotated. He's not going to improve this time round, I don't think. Seems to be down on a bit of straight line pace. So we'll stick to following Chris Nipris for this lap. continue to follow Chris Nipris. And the big number 61 Corvette is looking like he is improving on his times. He's only 2/10 off in the first sector. He fires the big number 61 Corvette. And it is a terrific livery. Of course, Go Race Promotions does support our serving members, and we'd like to say hello to everyone from the armed services that might be tuning in right now. So he is losing a lot of time in that middle sector. Now 1 second off of Farlow's time, so Nipris probably losing a bit of time down that big long straight. As he clatters over that curb and loses that lap. So, fortunately, Chris Nipris will have to throw that lap away. We're going to focus on Shawn Gerard. Of course, Shawn being one of the many new faces in the E-Series. Just getting to... Oof. That was a... I think we may have had a bit of desync there, so I don't think Shawn actually cut the corner there. As now Shawn decides to call it a day on that stint. Here's a man who generally goes under the radar sometimes, it's Ben Piper. Of course, we missed Ben at the first round, some internet problems. Sidelined the number 26 AMG. I guess with esports, you have a whole list of other things that can go wrong for you. As Ben clatters over that sausage curb. As we noted it during the Nürburgring practice that Harper doesn't mind crashing over those sausage curbs. Harper is chasing Farlow at the moment. Number 26 already looking really smooth out there. Clatters over the first sausage curb, the second, and the third. And that was a little bit too much. Puts a nice little drift and then loses it right in front of our camera. And we get some good exposure for VMA Euro. Piper decides to jump into the pits. Let's join Matteo DeVito now in the meme Ferrari. You gotta love the drivers that don't really take it that seriously. Of course, we love a bit of humour here at Go Race Promotions as well. As for some reason, Ben Piper is also in the chat. Ben, you should be on track, not in the chat. once again, our graphics not really picking up Matteo DeVito's splits. So we also see Kurt Woodward going up to 4th, continuing on this little to and fro between the DKS team. As you can see, maybe a little bit of push. And then a number 02 Ferrari has straight away. Oh, keeping an eye on that tree as well with the DKS battle as Kurt Dixon immediately. No, sorry, Brent Dixon. Good lord. Kurt's not even in the server yet, and I'm already getting them mixed up as we get distracted by the DKS battle, with Dixon finally getting back on Woodward. Well, actually, almost immediately getting back on Woodward. Matteo DeVito gets it a little bit wide onto the AstroTurf, pitches the Ferrari into the fence. As we turn our focus onto Glen Riddle as he makes his way out of the pits. Number 64 McLaren. Fortunately crosses that blend line. Ben Piper on the chat. I think you got that backwards, Ben. I don't think men can multitask. Focusing here on Glen Riddle. I'm pretty sure I'm actually mispronouncing his surname. I know he corrected me when here at GoRest Promotions we covered the Retro Karting Association's Winter Cup. He did tell me exactly how to say it. And I think I've just defaulted to the way I always say it. Pretty sure it's just Glen Riddle. I'm sure someone can correct me. I'm sure Glen will watch back through the stream and probably send me a couple of messages. Some maybe phonetically teaching me how to say his surname. We'll see Glen, sorry, over-rotate the McLaren again. And turned in a little too early for that second to last corner. Luckily it was his outlap, so Glen should have his eye in by now. We're seeing Shawn Gerard there on the start line. Not really sure what he's doing, but anyway. Nice and easy through the first corner and fires that McLaren out of the hairpin. And he stops the first sector, 2.3 down, so that'd be a big improvement on his current time if he can keep it together. As we also keep an eye on that little battle between the DKS team, as Kurt Woodward now gets in front of Brent Dixon. And we'll wait to see what response Brent Dixon has for Kurt. In the meantime, we're going to keep an eye on Glen Riddle. He fires the big McLaren down that big long straight, pulls it up for this tight left-hander, and he'll stop the second sector, 3.8 off of Farlow. As speaking of Farlow, he dips into the 207s. So Chris Farlow now lowers that bar once more. Doesn't quite get that double left-hander right, and he heads into this big, long, triple right-hander. Much smoother that time, stays away from that sausage curb. So we expect to see a big improvement from Glen. Points the car out of the final corner. It's a 2:13. So that's a big improvement for Glen. He now sets off again on another lap. A little bit more confidence going into the first corner. Fires it down the hill. And into this challenging sequence of lefts and rights. There's Glen. Now just a second off of Farlow. Starting to look a little bit more comfortable in the number 64 McLaren. We'll have to try and get our speed trap out. Get what speeds these guys are actually pulling down this long back straight. Glen is looking a lot more confident in the car. And he is up at least by 2/10 on his own lap time. That was a little bit smoother. We have to say we're loving the sound mod that we managed to find for the McLaren 650. That little crack every time the drivers change gears is very addictive, as Riddle looked like he got a little bit of mid-corner oversteer. Now tips it into the final corner, fires it out over onto the exit curb, and he'll stop the time at a 2:12. So again, more improvements for Glen Riddle. We do expect to see Glen getting faster and faster with each lap. Glen being very experienced. He's half a second up now on his own time. It's still half a second off of Chris Farlow as he is catching Shawn Gerard. Gets a little bit too excited. Mid-corner oversteer. Or maybe Shawn distracted him a little bit. Change our focus back to Chris Nipris. We've always got to keep an eye on this guy. He's a very sneaky sort of operator. He likes to leave it till the last few minutes before he starts putting in his real qualifying lap times. And we can already see that Chris is making a lot of progress on that leaderboard. He was 2 seconds down on the top time. Now he's just 1.5. As keep an eye on that DKS battle as Brent Dixon goes to the top of those two again. So Chris Nipris up to the middle sector. Let's see what he is getting down to. Yeah, that's an improvement for Nipris. So maybe the Corvette just starting to come on song now. So we do know that Chris Nipris likes to spend a lot of time in V8 supercars on Assetto Corsa. And we know that he doesn't need a lot of driving aids. So the traction control will be turned down, and obviously the Corvette doesn't have ABS. Maybe a little bit too greedy on the entry and on the exit. And that would have cost him a lot of time there. We'll change our focus to Michael DeVito as he's running a little bit wide there. And DeVito now fires the 0-2 Ferrari down the back straight. So, no, we will try and bring up the speed trap. Just got to find it. There it is. Let's switch on. I think it's switched on. We'll have to wait and see. Probably get a speed trap reading on DeVito the next time down that back straight. Here, nice early short shift. DeVito probably not relying on traction control, just like Chris Nipris. Gets it very wide though. DeVito manages to get the car just slow down enough. As we see Chris Farlow now down to a 207.5, so that bar, Chris Farlow is certainly asking a lot of questions of his competitors in this practice session. Just a bit of a hint of maybe a fair bit of understeer in the Ferrari. I do have to say that the Ferrari is definitely one of the most stable GT3 cars in Assetto Corsa, as DeVito really angles the Ferrari in hard into the hairpin, and then fires it off the apex. See if we can't get a speed trap on him this time, right? Not sure that we will. No, we don't. Okay, so it's not. Well, we know that it's there. So not really sure how to get that to work. Looks like DeVito has switched his focus from qualifying to a race setup, judging by the times we're seeing. Wait and see what DeVito can do at the end of this lap. So there at the final corner, probably a little bit too much exit space. It's 2:10.1, so I would say that DeVito is doing some heavy fuel runs. Very important to do in this practice session. Of course, The race being 1 hour long with a mandatory pit stop between 20 minutes and 40 minutes. Important for drivers to work out their strategy now. Maybe get a feel for what a full car feels like. DeVito probably outbraking himself just a little bit. Heavy car. Maybe less aggressive settings. Does make a difference how the car handles. So let's tune in with one of the DKS cars. Haven't really been watching these guys a lot, except of course on the timing tree. Been very entertaining to watch the two DKS cars constantly swap positions on the ladder. Of course we do remember the first round of Kurt Woodward and Matthew Southwell were battling it out all the way to the final minute. Of course, Matt Southwell managed to get the best of Kurt. And of course, Matt Southwell leading the championship at the moment. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like Matt Southwell will be joining us tonight. Number 63 McLaren driver is actually away for work and doesn't look like he'll be able to jump onto the sim tonight. But we hope to see him on the server next week. Welcome back, Glen Riddle. Instead of speed trap, we might try something a little bit different. Where are we? Yeah, can't seem to find a set of Corsa Essentials, unfortunately, so I'll have to look for that a little bit later, I think, as Kurt Woodward abandons this lap. Gets it very wrong. Imagine this was a test pit stop. Trying to make sure that he can actually he gets that all-important pit stop very right. A lot of time to be made on the entry to pits. He doesn't quite get it right on the marks. Nonetheless, that's another stint done for Woodward. We'll check back in with Shawn Gerard just to see on his progress. Shawn, brand new to the world of sim racing. Into a set of Corsa, definitely a set of Corsa. Obviously a rookie in sim racing. But we're absolutely thrilled to have Shawn on with us. And we hope he's having a ton of fun over in Adelaide. Shawn is registered as number 76, but tonight we got him running as number 911. Still waiting for his own livery to be finalised. It's a very tight line. Probably just needs to smoothen out the lines. A little bit more practice and Shawn will be, sure enough, up near the front. As we seem to have caught in Shawn as he comes into the pits, so not having any luck following drivers out there at the moment. As we'll check in with Brent Dixon, who just moved up to 3rd position. Imagine this is his outlap, taking big, wide, sweeping lines. As yeah, he's getting right off the track. He's not really sure what he's doing at the moment. Getting out of the way of his teammate and Matteo DeVito. Now the number 13 fires it off the final corner. As DeVito got it wrong just ahead of him. Fires up down the main straight. No shortage of straight line pace on the Corvette by the looks of things. As here's where we'll see the biggest difference between mid and front engine. The Ferrari being a little bit more nimble. It does look as though the Corvette is slowly starting to get that mid-corner speed up. In fact, almost being balked a little by the Ferrari ahead of him. Maybe Brent needs to nap that flash headlights button before next week. So now we'll see the difference in speed between the Ferrari and the Corvette. Although it seems pretty even. Corvette definitely looks a little bit stronger than the Ferrari on entry and around the mid-corner. Maybe even on exit, so Vito Dixon with that big, wide, sweeping line gets him fired off the corner into this triple right-hander as DeVito sidesteps in and allows Brent Dixon to get on with it. Very good, polite driving going on out there. We're going to see that a lot next week. Drivers missing the apex to that downhill left-hander. Dixon stops the clock, 2:11.2. Well off the pace of Farlow at the moment. But again, we're not really sure what these drivers are working on at the moment. I do suspect that DeVito is working on his race setup. Definitely suspect that Chris Empress is working on a race setup. Down on Farlow. Again, this session not really about setting the blistering fast lap times. It's all about getting your car ready for that 1 hour session, but Farlow definitely setting some early signals to his competitors that he needs to be taken seriously. Of course, we have talked about it on our Facebook page, that potential move to Assetto Corsa Competizione. We're very much impressed with how far competition has come, and we do believe it will be a much better fit for our GT3 championship. Hopefully gain a little bit more exposure for the series and get a lot more drivers competing. Of course, we're not going to exclude Assetto Corsa competitors either. We will be expanding the E-Series next year. We're currently experimenting with a few different categories with our fun races. Categories being thrown around include V8 supercars, TCR, historic DTM, some Le Mans prototype style cars, and even some open wheelers. Speaking of the Dixon Kart Sport battle, we now see Kurt Woodward get in front of Brent again. So these two drivers, they're slowly making progress. They're just continuing a steady march to closing the gap to Farlow. As we can see, Woodward slowed down to let his teammate through, and DeVito as well. Just keeping an eye on those sectors as Dixon stops at 0.5 slower, so Dixon has got some consistency, that's for sure. The Corvette working well for him as he clatters over the sausage curb, and then uses a lot of the exit space. Just see that Dixon is starting to gap with DeVito a little bit. As the track is slowly starting to rubber in, you can just see it getting a little bit darker here and there. Tell even just by how much more stable the cars are looking, as we're seeing. We just caught Shawn Gerard going across the line. He does improve a little bit, so great to see that Shawn is starting to get a little bit more comfortable. As Dixon and DeVito now both pull into the pits. But let's check in with the fastest man in the session so far, Chris Farlow, the number 20 AMG. Came in and joined us at our last fun race and really turned heads so quickly. Finishing second in that fun race. I was very fortunate to be in that fun race myself. And it was very unnerving to watch the number 20 claw time back on myself by about half a second per lap. So Farlow is definitely a driver that, well, we're not really sure what he's done there. Maybe he's watching the stream and he just decided he doesn't want to be the centre of attention, but we're going to keep focusing on Chris, even as he sits in pit lane. Certainly so quick this early part of the session. So we've just gone halfway through this session with an hour 25 to go, so now we're going to start seeing some drivers putting in some quick lap times. It is great to see. You look down the left-hand side of that tower, just how close it is between second and fourth. Of course, Farlow currently in a world of his own, 6/10 faster than the next driver. Now all 8 cars are on the track at the moment. We are absolutely thrilled to see so many drivers lining up for the E Series already. See some smoke signals up ahead. I suspect that might have been Ben Piper. Keep an eye on Farlow. Currently top of the leaderboard at the moment, but Ben Piper closes that gap a little bit. Now down to 4/10. Piper making huge progress there. And the number 26 AMG, but right now we're focusing on the number 20 Mercedes. Gets out onto the AstroTurf. Actually, this would be his outlap, so begging your pardon. Some sector times now for Chris Farlow finally. Some 0.4 off his own lap time. So, assuming that Chris probably made a mistake somewhere on this lap. And Piper is the man on the move at the moment. He's just improved on his previous best and now sits just 0.3 off of Farlow's best lap. So Ben Piper on maximum attack in that all black AMG. And using a lot of the track there. And lots of oversteer, but it's quick. 0.09 up on Farlow, so Piper could displace the number 20. He's a bit wide. And then over the... Oh, that's not good. So Piper again hits that sausage curb and plants the number 26 AMG into the fence. So let's focus back on Farlow. Yellow and it's a very dark shade of blue. Number 20 AMG. A little bit sideways, a little bit too wide on the AstroTurf. Now gets it pulled up for this little hairpin. Fires it down the straight. Looks like he's chasing two Corvettes. I think that's the all black Corvettes of... I know it's one of the Dixon cars and perhaps Nippers. Farlow pulls it up, gets it to rotate. Unfortunately, our sector time's not quite working. But he does have Shawn Gerard chasing him in the background there in the Porsche. Farlow is looking so quick. That AMG just firing out of that tightening left-hander. There's not a hint of oversteer or understeer. That car is really well balanced. So now Farlow, what does he set? Not really sure what he just set. Might be an outlap. Who knows? Either way, Farlow sets off on another lap. Gets it rotated around the first corner. Of course, we do expect to see a few fireworks in the first corner next Thursday night. Ooh, a little bit of oversteer mid-corner. Farlow definitely a man to keep an eye on, as he might be being a little bit too greedy with track limits there. There's Ben Piper in the chat there, that curb. Yes, that sausage curb is not your friend tonight, Ben. Has to be said. Refocus on Chris Farlow. Pulls up the number 20 AMG, gets it to rotate. Unfortunately, we have no data again. His sector time, so we'll just have to assume that right now Chris is very quick out there. So that was Brent Dixon ahead of Chris there, getting right out of the way and back to the pits. That is really consistent from Chris. He's almost taking the exact same line every single lap. So we're not getting any data from Chris, so we might just move on to this man right here, Matteo DeVito. As he approaches the end of the first sector. He's down by half a second. Clouts that sausage curb. Almost looked like he got a lot of wheel spin. He stomped on the accelerator. Comes down the hill to this hairpin left. They'll send him down the back straight. Ruka asking for any tips to offer Chris Nipris for his setup. Where can he make up time? We haven't really been spending a lot of time on Chris, although it does look like he's having a lot of trouble in the middle sector, which Matteo DeVito is coming up to the end of now. DeVito losing a lot of time in the middle sector as well, although, again, we do assume that these two drivers are working on a race setup. So we're not... So the big difference is, of course, with a race setup, you're looking for a car that's gentle on the tyres, easy to drive consistently, and that usually doesn't mean outright pace. Whereas with a qualifying setup, you're not really caring about the tyres, not really caring about a consistent car. You want a car that's quick on that one lap. Vito a little wide, stops the clock at 2:09.7. DeVito slowly making progress with that race we assume to be a race setup. As we welcome James McAuliffe into the chat, obviously a Matteo DeVito fan. DeVito looking very consistent in the first sector. And manages to keep control of the car a little bit better. To that tricky right-hander that goes uphill and down the hill into this hairpin left. We see Dixon getting out of the way. Sorry, Brent Dixon getting out of the way of Michael. See where DeVito stops the clock at the second for the middle sector. 1.9 off, so definitely starting to get a little bit more comfortable. As we see Chris Nipris just bettering his previous best. Well, now 1.5 seconds off the leader. We're getting into the final hour of this practice session. So we keep an eye on Michael DeVito. Gets the Ferrari pulled up nicely for that downhill left-hander, and then gets a big tank slapper and is now reversing down towards the pit entry. A bit of a shame. I do think that Vito was on for a fairly good lap time there, but be back to the drawing board. As we also see that Shawn Gerard has also stopped on the track somewhere. So let's join the number 61 Corvette. He's currently got Ben Piper just behind him. Chris Nipris is stopped the second sector. 2.5, so I do suspect that Chris has made a mistake somewhere along this lap. It's a little bit sideways. As we see that both Nipris and Piper are favouring that tight, straight line approach to that tightening left-hander. Of course, the advantages of that approach as Piper gets a little bit sideways. He's got a big tank slapper. We're going to see if he managed to hold that. He almost did, but he ends that backwards in the gravel trap. So let's rejoin Chris Nipris. Hard luck there, Ben. Yes, I do think that Chris Nipris is still working on that race setup. As this is just typical Chris Nipris strategy. Leaves it until the last few minutes of this session to start working on a qualifying setup. That's usually why Chris is such a threat when it comes to the actual race itself, because Chris spends so much time working on a race setup. As you can see, he's not that far off DeVito's time at the moment. It does look like it has a bit of mid-corner understeer. Fires the Corvette down the hill for this sharp left-hander. He's got Shawn Gerard just ahead of him, the newcomer to sim racing. As Shawn does a very good job of getting right out of the way of Chris. So, well done to Shawn. Appreciate the polite driving there. As Ben Piper makes the comment, that's a very low rear wing. As I do think that we're about to say goodbye to Ben. So of course Ben has a lot of commitments in sim racing. Racing iRacing, Gran Turismo, Sport. Now, of course, Assetto Corsa with the Go Race Promotions E-Series. focusing on the number 61 Corvette of Chris Nippers. Awesome looking livery for the Anzacs. A little bit wide. Good consistency from Nippers, but I think he might be using a little bit too much exit space coming onto the front straight, as that AstroTurf does actually slow you down a little bit. You can see Chris, very smooth driver. As we detailed a little bit earlier in the stream, that Chris does like to spend a lot more time on V8 supercars with Assetto Corsa, so of course no driving aids, big heavy cars with half the grip. So Chris probably doesn't need as much interference from traction control, and of course he doesn't need ABS, as the Corvette doesn't have ABS at all. Fires the Corvette down the hill once more into this fairly tight left-hander. He gets the big Corvette rotated and now fires it down this big, long straight. The good thing about this straight is that it gives drivers a good chance to just collect their thoughts, as they hit about 250 to 260 kilometers per hour into this somewhat tight left-hander, usually second gear or first gear depending on which car you're driving. As Chris, that was looking like a much better middle sector. So he's favouring that mid-track approach for that tightening left-hander. Of course, that line will protect you from a dive bomb, but it does compromise your exit. Right now, Chris is doing some race simulations. So, got another question from Ruka. What's the point setup for winning in this E-Series? So, basically, drivers score points in the shootout and in the race. So, with the shootout, drivers get awarded 10 points for putting it on pole position, and it goes to 5 for second, 4 for third, 3 points for... No, I think I've got that wrong. I've definitely got that wrong, actually. It's 3 points for third, 2 points for fourth, and 1 point for fifth. For the race itself, drivers are racing for 25 points for a win, 20 points for second, 16 points for third, 13 points for fourth, 11 points for fifth, 10 points for sixth, all the way down to 15th. So, right now, it is a very good idea for drivers to utilise this time to get not only a good race setup, but a good shootout setup, so that they can compete for that little injection of points with 10 points for putting on pole position, as that's exactly what Chris did at the Nürburgring for round number 1. And as a result, Chris is only a handful of points off of current championship leader Matthew Southwell. As we welcome back to the server Glen Riddle. I've seen Glen drop in and out of the server quite a few times. I suspect he may be having some steering wheel issues. He's just trying to resolve that ahead of the first round next week. Chris Nippers starting to hit some very consistent lap times. That's, I think, his third 209.5. Let's change our focus back to one of the DKS cars. Another Corvette. as Brent Dixon will continue his little battle with his teammate. He and Kurt Woodward have been swapping positions on the tower all session long. It's Brent really exceeding track limits, so some of these drivers are going to have to get a stern slap on the wrist after this session for exceeding track limits. Of course, we do suspect that it is actually slower to be exceeding track limits, as we just saw that Shawn Gerard, looks like he's wiped about 6 seconds off his previous best lap time. So Shawn slowly starting to get to grips with Assetto Corsa. Of course, it is his first time in sim racing, so we obviously welcome Shawn with open arms into the E-Series, and hopefully he's on the Discord getting some tips and tricks, maybe some setup ideas, and hopefully he'll get on the pace quickly. Of course, he's probably chosen the hardest car to drive with, in my humble opinion, the Porsche 911. I happened to do a bit of a stream on Sunday where I just sort of drove random Assetto Corsa GT3 cars, and the Porsche 911 was probably the hardest car to drive. I found it was very unstable in corners. I just hated every second in it, and I couldn't wait to get out of it. So Shawn is putting in the best effort he can, I assume. Well, I don't assume, I know. He is putting in the best effort he can, as he's been slowly making progress over the last 2 hours. And hopefully he's at home in Adelaide, having a great time on the simulator. As you see Brent Dixon, I believe he has changed focus as well, and he is now focusing on his race setup, as we're not seeing any super fast times being thrown our way. So I think everyone is really starting to change focus onto a race setup. Of course, Chris Farlow setting that unbelievable 2:07.5. That's certainly got to have a lot of drivers sweating just a little bit. As Dixon misses that left-hander. Let's just see in the chat. So far, what is your favourite sounding car in the E-Series? Obviously, we got the Corvette here. That low, rumbling V8. Of course, it's a winner with most people, I think. Of course, I'd just like to note that we're actually not using the Assetto Corsa sound files. We actually downloaded some sound mods just to make the cars sound a little bit better. We think this is a massive improvement for the Corvette. It just sounds so mean. So can't go wrong with a big thumping V8. Let's see if we can't track down another car as we bring up the Ferrari of Matteo DeVito. So, Ferrari 488. DeVito using a very interesting line there. sort of sacrifices his speed between that section and the tightening left-hander. Very wide coming out of the final apex of that triple right-hander. And then onto the AstroTurf on his way up to the final corner, maximising the entry space and then maximising the exit space. And this is a very good... So DeVito's still working on race pace. And again, who in the chat likes the Ferrari? Sound mod for the Ferrari I'm talking about, of course. Well, let's move on. We'll check out another brilliant sounding car. Personal favourite of mine is the AMG GT3. Absolutely glorious roar from that Mercedes V8. How many Mercedes fans in the chat at the moment? As we follow Ben Piper, that's probably not the best way to end the lap. Ben probably pushing just a little bit too hard. Either way, gotta love the sound of the AMGs. Cannot go wrong. Now, on the final cars we have sound mods for, the Porsche 911. Seem to be experiencing a bit of desync there with Shawn. Just missed his braking mark, I think. Maybe trying a little bit too hard. And back to the pits for Shawn Gerard, as we not seeing any movement from Glen Riddle at the moment. But we're also seeing a little bit of progress from this man here, Chris Nepris. He's just picked up half a second on his previous best. And I still think he is working on a race setup. So that is foreboding. That is quite ominous. Anyway, we're into the final hour of this 3-hour practice session. So we're likely to see some drivers who have been a little bit conservative with their, or a little bit secretive with what hand they have. Now they'll probably start to show it in this last hour. It's Chris Nepris flashing the headlights. I don't know who he's flashing them at. Farlow is a fair way up the road in comparison to him. Wonderful livery dedicated to our Anzacs again. As Chris Nepris rounds the final corner, I think that was the end of his outlap. No, that was a 2:08.1, so Chris Nepris flies up the leaderboard. So like I said, Chris Nepris, he always leaves it to the last hour before he starts showing his hand. So Chris Nepris now half a second off of Chris Farlow's time. So Well, we were sort of thinking that we might have to do a balance of performance adjustment, but, well, Chris Nipris is definitely showing a lot more progress now, as he quite possibly is in qualifying mode. He's just 3/10 off Farlow now in the first sector, missing the apex a little bit for the right-hander going up the hill. And now sends the big number 61 Corvette down the hill into this tight left-hander before firing it down this massive long back straight. We're hoping to see a lot of slipstream battles down this back straight next week when we go racing. As now Nipris stops the clock on the second sector, 9/10 down, so I don't know what happened. It may have been just that little mistake of missing the apex. He fires it into the apex. Very, very, very shallow line Nipris prefers there. Well, you see drivers like Farlow and Dixon, they like to take that big, wide, sweeping line. Of course, the disadvantage of that big, wide, sweeping line is that someone will dive bomb you. So Chris Nipris rounds the final corner, stops the clock at 2:08.1. Not an improve. Oh, that was his best lap. My bad. Chris Nipris goes once more. But we're going to change our focus onto this man here, Glen Riddle. Seems like Glen has been struggling a little bit with stability with that McLaren 650S. We have had Matt Southwell comment that the car is just so hard to drive that it is very unstable. We're getting close to the final 45 minutes of this session. It's a little bit slow getting through that left-handers. I don't know what is going on back here. The DKS cars are playing silly buggers with each other, perhaps. As we refocus back on Glen Riddle. He brings the McLaren around the triple right-hander. Sends it down the hill into this. Actually gets the McLaren pointed in quite nicely. And he, unlike all the other drivers, he's not using all that exit space, so Glen might be on for an okay time. Maybe an improvement. Not quite an improvement on his previous best. So Glen just making small baby steps to improve himself. As he has a DKS Corvette just ahead of him. Hopefully Kurt will get out of the way, although Riddle's just thrown that lap away. Way, way, way wide. As we now welcome Steve Duro into the server. So now we have 9 drivers on the practice server. As, oh, that's a big hit for Glen Riddle. That was a massive hit. He just got onto the AstroTurf and just pitted the number 64 McLaren into the fence. So unfortunate end to what was looking like a pretty good stint for Glen, and we hope that he just works on the setup a little bit more. Maybe looks for a little bit more traction and gets straight back out there, which he does. Good to see Glen. Definitely not a quitter. Glen Riddle. Been around for a very long time, the Riddle family. Of course, their involvement, as we've touched on earlier in the stream, with the Retro Karting Association. Their involvement in organising, or well, assisting with promoting of retro karting in or around the east coast of Australia. And a really good group of people running that organisation. So Glen Riddle. So we hope to see the second McLaren out on track next week. Unfortunately, we did lose Matt Southwell. Unfortunately, he's currently away for work, so unfortunately we are missing Matt Southwell tonight, but hopefully we will see him take to the track next Thursday, as he may even have a bit of a repeat of his efforts from round number 1, where he sort of suckered everyone into thinking that he wasn't going to be competitive, and then he went out and won the first round. So we wish that Matt Southwell has the best of luck next week. Hopefully the lack of practice doesn't hurt him too much. Glen Riddle, the McLaren, looking a little bit more happier this time round. Certainly not seeing much of the mid-corner snap oversteer that we were seeing earlier in the session, as Glen makes a start on his first flying lap in this stint. So, as he gets through the first section, oh, big tank slap, and that will be the end of that lap, as he loops it right in front of Chris Nipris, and he manages to keep it off the wall and keep it out of the way of Chris Nipris. So, good little bit of driving there from Glen. Can essentially throw that lap into the bin. And while I'm talking about drivers that are still getting to grips with their race setup, it's Ben Piper. See if he's finally sorted out that rear stability. In the meantime, we will probably leave you following the fastest man of the session so far, while we take a quick break to get ourselves a quick coffee. Hope you're enjoying the stream so far. We'll be back very, very shortly. Hello and welcome back. Well, thank you for waiting, as I seem to have missed out on quite a bit with Steve Duros with a number 12 AMG going straight to the top after only being in the server for about 5 minutes. So, welcome to the server, Steve Duros. Of course, Steve Duros, another brand new name into the E-Series, in that wonderfully presented Mercedes AMG. It looks so nice. It obviously based on the old school McLaren Formula 1 team, the old West livery. Of course, we had to change the livery just a little bit, make sure we didn't run afoul of any tobacco advertising laws, but that livery still looks amazing. As we see contact in practice, Glen Riddle and Steve Duro coming together. Bit of an unfortunate coming together there for Steve and Glen. Hopefully, the two are just having a bit of a laugh on the Discord channel and just moving on with the racing. We also see that Shawn Gerard is making a bit of progress. He's picked up another 7 seconds on his previous best. So it's great to see that Shawn is making progress. So, as we are getting reports actually that there is a bit of a glitch in our server. While the control tyre is mediums, one driver has managed to get on soft, so we'll have to check that in the server settings. In the meantime, it is Steve Duro on top, but we will fully investigate that. But anyway, as it stands, we are starting to see a lot of progress from a lot of drivers. And it is very tight at the top. So maybe potentially ignore that fastest lap time from Steve Duro. We're focusing on Ben Piper here, currently third in the session. It's brilliant to see so many cars on the track at the moment. As we can see, of course, Matteo DeVito in the red Ferrari, Kurt Woodward in the number 9 Corvette, and Ben Piper in the number 26 AMG. See Ben Piper around the final corner. And goes past Kurt Woodward, obviously going back to the pits. As we're going to check in actually with our meme machine right here. Matteo DeVito. Again, we pointed out earlier in the stream that quite possibly may be a self-portrait on the door of the number 02 Ferrari. As that would be quite entertaining to see that pop up beside you. He's swapped over to a race setup focus. Weaving down the straight for some reason. It's a bit odd, but anyway. It does look like that Ferrari is pointing in a lot better. As we're hearing someone bouncing a car off the rev limiter. Yes, we've just found the culprit. So Glen Riddle. Well, that's certainly something that you don't normally see with 34 minutes left in a session. Moving right back along, we're going to refocus back on Matteo DeVito. So he starts another lap in this stint. Looking at some different lines going through that. It's actually, I actually find it to be a very tricky little complex there, that right, left, because it starts to go uphill and you're actually blind as to where you're actually driving. So you have to sort of guess where the edge of the track is, point the car, and then squeeze the throttle on. And at the same time, you're trying to limit the wheel spin, trying to stop the car drifting too far wide, because then you end up on that AstroTurf and you'll find yourself swapping ends and going face first into the fence on the left-hand side of the track. So, drivers who can get that section right, find they'll manage to pick up a lot of time. I think we're hearing someone else. We'll refocus on the number 12. Currently sitting at the top of the time sheets, though we are getting reports that somehow we allowed soft tyres into the server, and Steve may not have been aware that he had soft tyres on the car. Wait and see what his pace is like. And that wonderfully presented Mercedes AMG. Obviously based on the old McLarens from the late 1990s and the early 2000s. Not quite the smoothest line through that double left. As we say goodbye to Glen Riddle again. Watch Steve Duro fire it out of the final corner again. Start this current lap. Steve Gerard's using every bit of the track there, including the sausage curves. Once again, we touched on this a little bit earlier in the stream, that the AMG seems to be really, really compliant with the curbs. And we're seeing that with Ben Piper and Chris Farlow, and now even Steve Duro just slapping those sausage curves as hard as they can. Makes for entertaining vision. And maybe a little bit more of an advantage for Steve Duro as he fires the big Mercedes down that back straight. Otherwise, the times are all looking very close between all the drivers. Of course, if we find that Steve has been on the soft tyres, well, he'll probably add about a second and a half onto his time, and you'll find that he'll be right there in about third position with Ben Piper. So he rounds the second to last corner. The number 12 Mercedes actually planted really well. Fires it out of the final corner, not too much exit space. And we're not getting any timing data on Steve, so probably just leave him there. Move on to the next man in the queue, which is Chris Farlow. As we see Brent Dixon move up to fourth position. in the number 13 Corvette. So Brent is really starting to make a lot of progress and moving forward with each lap. Well done to Brent Dixon. Meanwhile, we're looking back at Chris Farlow. He's got Kurt Dixon chasing him. He fires it out of the final corner and stops the clock at a 2:07.7. Sorry. So not quite an improvement. Chris is going. Looks like he's back onto a qualifying setup focus. Chris Farlow, probably the fastest driver in the session at the moment. So he's 3/10 ahead of Ben Piper. He clips that sausage curd, pops the front of the car up. Probably cost him a little bit of time there. But again, Chris is very smooth driver. Very consistent. Every single time we focused on him, that little left-hander as he goes up the hill, not even close. He just gets it so fine on that sausage curb. He must be only a whisker away from slapping the sausage curb and then spitting himself off to stage right. But he fires the number 20 back down the big long back straight. Hopefully he'll get it pulled up for this tight left-hander on the limit of braking. Like you would not believe. That is... absolutely amazes me how well these cars pull up. We'll probably be looking at a really strong time from Chris Farlow here. And just get the number 20 rotated. Fires it out. Up to the triple right-hander. Just to get the car pointed in nicely, a bit too wide. So that'll be a talking point after this session, I'm sure, of track limits. So he stops the clock at 2:07.9 as Kurt Woodward follows Farlow to a 2:07.8 as we see Shawn Gerard pulling nice out of the way of Farlow. Gerard just exiting the pits. So Farlow will stop the first sector time right now. Again, very consistent from Farlow. A little bit of oversteer, bit of a wheel spin. Otherwise, it's absolute pleasure to be watching Chris Farlow turning laps in this number 20 AMG. Apart from that little wobble coming through the top, through that uphill right and left, Mercedes is just looking so stable, just going exactly where Chris wants to put it. So I wouldn't be putting any money against Chris Farlow. If you're sitting in chat right now, that number 20 is looking very threatening for the win. Drivers will have a week just to work on their setup a little bit further. Of course, next week we go racing. Gets it pulled up, fires it out of the final corner, down the main straight, 2:07 flat. So that is a massive improvement from Chris Farlow. That is absolutely ominous for anyone sitting in the pits looking at the times. Absolutely amazing lap time from Chris Farlow at 2:07 flat. As now change focus to another one of the Mercedes out on track, Ben Piper. So gets the number 26 rotated. As we see in the background, that 61 going very wide. That will not help his lap time. Now Piper is looks a little bit more conservative going through the chicane, not hitting the sausage curb. Very different line in comparison to Farlow. Still using that sausage curb, as we see Chris Nipris get it wrong in the background there. And Nipris back to the pits. So for those of you sitting in chat, once again would like to apologise for the poor stream quality. Unfortunately, YouTube is throttling data streams, so unfortunately the only way we can be able to make the stream stable and stay live, bringing you all the action as it happens, is we had to drop the quality of our stream. So hopefully, we really hope that this COVID-19 situation sorts itself out rather quickly, and we can get back to regular streaming. As we keep an eye on Ben Piper as he brings the big Mercedes around the final part of that triple right-hander, downhill into that dropping left-hander before the track rises again into the final corner. Now fires the Mercedes down the hill again. It's a 2:09.9, so I'd say Ben is also on a race setup. He points the Mercedes through the first corner again. Tidier that time for Ben. Comes down the hill one more time into this hard braking left-hander. Gets the Mercedes rotated. Brief kiss on the curb. Out onto the exit curb and then fires it down this massive long back straight. Of course, we were here for a fun race a little bit earlier in the year, and we had a driver in a Nissan GTR that absolutely loved this back straight because, well, for whatever reason, the Nissan GTR is an absolute jet in a straight line, was about 20 k's per hour faster than everything else. So it's almost a case of if you didn't have more than car length and a half over the GTR, you were just going to get gobbled up. As it stands, we haven't got anyone in a Nissan GTR yet. Hopefully we get to see someone running around in a GTR. As well, from a commentator's standpoint, I do love the GTR. But right now we are focusing on the AMG of Ben Piper. Brings the 26 out of the final corner to 2:09.7. Just hearing a Porsche in the background there, and of course there's Shawn Gerard. Probably being a little bit greedy with the curbs there, or maybe just trying to get out of the way of Ben Piper. You can see him just recovering in the background there. Swap focus to Kurt Woodward. The big Chevrolet Corvette, that mean-looking orange headlights. Was one of 3 of the DKS team in the E-Series. Of course, we're excited to see that Kurt Dixon, brother of Brent Dixon, will be joining the team in a Porsche 911. So hopefully we'll see him make an appearance next week when we go racing for real for round number 2 of the Go Race Promotions E-Series. Woodward very aggressive on the sausage curbs. Very aggressive, actually. Really throwing the Corvette around the corner, around this track, sorry. See that Woodward seems to have adopted a style close to Chris Nippris, the number 61 Corvette. Changed from a big, long, wide sweeping line to that more direct mid-track approach as Michael DeVito goes up to 3rd in the session. Though we would probably realistically call that 2nd in the session. Woodward continues on his way as we focus on Shawn Gerard. Again, another off-track excursion for the newcomer to sim racing, and another lose. Once again, in defence of Shawn, the Porsche is not an easy car to drive. It is very twitchy. It very much bites, and once again, it just all the weight in the rear. Once it starts swinging, it's like a pendulum. It just gets worse and worse and worse until you just lose it. So I do have sympathy and understanding for how Shawn is struggling at the moment. But here at Go Race Promotions, we encourage people to come on, have some fun, regardless of their skill level. We're very happy to see that Shawn hasn't given up. And he's still gathering that essential track time, which will make him a better driver in the future. Meantime, we follow Steve Duro as he comes up behind Chris Nippris. Chris Nippris just sidesteps him. Mercedes is looking very, very quick. I do assume that Steve has swapped back to the medium compound tyres. It doesn't look like as though he's pulling away from Chris Nippris that much, so I would assume he has. continue to watch Steve as he goes through this chicane. Really gets very greedy with the curb on the left-hand side. Powers out into that deceptively tight left-hander. Uses all that curb. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we got any lap data still on Steve. So we are just going to have to wait and see what lap time he sets when he crosses the line. He's dragging Chris Nipris along with him. Just see the black and white Corvette in the background. You can hear it as it rumbles past us. So we welcome back Glen Riddle. Hoping that Glen has sorted out his issues and is able to stay on the server for a little bit longer. You can almost see with the body language of the number 12 here that Steve is on maximum attack. He comes down towards the final corner, rotates the Mercedes, gets it out of the final corner, and he crosses the line. Not really sure what lap time he has done there. Chris Nipris behind has done a 2:08.05, so we can probably assume that Steve has done a 2:07.5 that last time by. As we see Chris Nipris go straight ahead, going straight back to the pits, as Steve Duro also returns to the pits. Swap back to Chris Farlow, currently second in the session, although we could probably call him provisional first at this stage. As we know, as we did get reports that Steve Duro accidentally went out on track with soft tyres. So Farlow out on his outlap, I would say. Working the tyres, trying to keep the temperature up. Of course, we did switch on the tyre blankets in the server settings. I don't know why he's trying to warm the tyres up so much, as we now have 10 minutes to go in this session. We keep an eye on Chris Farlow. Comes out of the final corner one more time to start his first lap, I assume. Farlow rounds that first corner, sends it down the hill into turn number 2 for this brilliant left, right, left combination of corners, then into this very long left-hander. It's really a double apex for hard on the brakes. Oh, bit of a wiggle there from the 20. That's the first time we've seen the car really unstable this entire session. Chris Farlow pulls up the number 20. Gets it rotated just over the curb, squeezes on the power, and now he fires it down this big, long straight. Car's hitting about 250, maybe 260, depending on where they've got the rear wings set at. Before they have to bring it back down to about 90 k's per hour. This left-hander. As we see Kurt Woodward managed to take back third on the leaderboard. As now we're starting to see drivers out there setting some quick qualifying times with 8 minutes left in the session. think Farlow has backed out of this one. Maybe some traffic up ahead. Yes, we can see Shawn Gerard just trying to make sure he gets out of the way, or he's going into the pits. It's great to see such polite driving going on already in the E-Series. Only round number 2 of the 2020 season. As we change our focus onto Kurt Woodward. I think Kurt may have had a bit of a moment out there through the chicane. Oh, bit of a mid-corner oversteer there. We're not really sure what happened with Kurt. He's well off the pace on this lap. Must have had a big spin somewhere. Well, let's have a look at our probably one of the best liveries we've seen in a long time, or at least one that's made us smile a lot. Matteo DeVito's number 02 Ferrari. DeVito currently running, we would say, provisional 3rd in the session. Even with the manual adjustments that we're doing in our head, it is looking very ominous that Farlow will be the dominant driver for this round. That number 20 just working really well already. As we watch Matteo DeVito finish his outlap and start his first flyer. Drivers will probably get about maybe 2 more laps, maybe 3 more laps in, depending on when they cross the line from this point on. So we're going to stick with Matteo DeVito as he finishes this lap. As he, wow, really aggressive into the first corner. And very wide on the exit. It's going to cost him a little bit of time. He fires it down the hill, very narrow entry into turn number 2. Now, very, very smooth, not crashing over the sausage curbs, although he does clip one there. He's about 0.6 off of Steve Duro's time set on soft tyres. Yeah, Matteo DeVito going backwards down the track. Unfortunately, as he flicks the car around, but make sure that no one else is coming, so it's good responsible driving from Michael. Throw that lap away for DeVito. Look at Ben Piper. So he starts another lap. Catch him just at the start of his next flyer. Starting to see a bit of headlight flashing going on out there. As Piper rounds the first corner. Fires it down the hill. Into turn number 2. See if Piper can keep the car pointing forwards through the chicane. He has had a bit of trouble, as he's had a bit of a slide, way too wide, and that's cost him a lot of time. And compromised his exit, and he's almost gone around. He saved it. That would have put off Kurt Woodward behind him. So that lap is also a bust for Piper. And now Kurt Woodward's getting it out of it. So we're now about to join Brent Dixon as he goes for probably his second last lap this session. As we see Glen Riddle get up to a 2:10.2. Glen Riddle has slowly improved this session as well, as we're continuing to focus on Brent Dixon as he starts his probably second last lap. It's the big Corvette pulled up just in time for turn number 1, fires it down the hill to turn number 2. Gets the car pointed in for this left, right, left again, and then this long right-hander. He's very deep, very wide. That's not going to help his lap time. So Brent must have just missed his braking marker a little bit. Brent was very competitive here earlier in the year when we did our fun race. Actually won the fun race. Now fires the Corvette down this massive long back straight. Coming down to the final minute of this session, we really hope that you've enjoyed the stream of this session as we got a bit of an explanation from Ben Piper. 25 laps on tyres. Yes, yeah, that won't help your grip, Ben. That's one hell of a race simulation anyway. Continue to follow Brent Dixon, although this lap does not look like it's going to be a really on fire lap. So we're now going to change focus to Chris Nipris as he's he's still in it. I thought he was backing out of it, maybe abandoning this lap. Although this lap does not look particularly fast, must have made a mistake somewhere. So Chris Nipris will back out of that one. And Ben Piper is now, checkered flag is out on this session. Ben Piper doesn't look like he's going to improve on his time. As you see, Chris Farlow has finished his session. Binomial, sorry, Steve Duros. Accidentally on the soft compound tyre earlier in the session, which is why he set that 2:06.3. Anyway, that's our fault. We did check the server settings. As we change focus to Shawn Gerard, the newcomer. So he's been slowly making progress. Eventually, he's actually wiped off about almost 20 seconds off his lap time. And arguably one of the hardest to handle cars in the entire field. Gets it out of the final corner and sets 2:27.2. Seeing Ben Piper doing a bit of a celebration for some reason. Fourth in this, probably fifth in the session. As we see, Brent Dixon, he does improve, so he just pips Ben Piper at the end of the session. So, as you can see, there are the results. Steve Giro on top of the leaderboard, although a bit of a question mark as to how he got that lap time. Chris Farlow, second in the session. Amazing lap time of a 2:07 flat. Kurt Woodward, third in the session, while Michael DeVito brought up fourth. Brent Dixon in fifth position and Ben Piper in sixth. Chris Nipris got a little bit of work to do on the number 61 Corvette, but you just know that Chris, he will close the gap down. Glen Riddle slowly making improvements, still getting to grips with sim racing and the McLaren 650S, and Shawn Gerard finishes up the running order of the competitors, setting a 2:22. 16 seconds off the lap time, but not too bad considering this is his first time in sim racing. So we have 1 week left to go before we go racing for round number 2 of the Go Race Promotions E-Series. If you want to be a part of this, make sure you jump on to our Facebook page, like us, follow us, then send us an email at gorace_events@outlook.com with your name, race number and your preferred race car, and we can get you involved in the E-Series, and you can join these drivers in having a lot of fun. Well, we hope you had a great time, and we will see you in a week's time.